Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Dion's Daily Dose. Today we have a very special guest. His name is John Rust, and he's running for United States Senate. Now, as most of you should know by now, Senate's kind of important. It's one of the two divisions of the legislative branch of Congress. And what that means is they make the laws. They make the laws for us here in our country, and they also decide, Congress and Senate decide where our money's going, who's going to receive our aid. They have a lot of control over a lot of things. You and I may go and cast our vote for president and think that that person alone can fix everything, but it's not that simple, ladies and gentlemen. There are a lot of congressmen and 100 senators that can easily block what the president's trying to do. As many of you know, when Trump was in office, most of Congress and the Senate spent most of their time trying to stop everything he was doing. So it's a critically important position. Every state has 2 senators. Indiana is no different. Our current U.S. senators are Mike Braun, who is retiring and is going to run for Indiana governor. That's a completely different show, different discussion. But the other one is Todd Young, and he recently won re-election despite everyone's best efforts. And so he'll be there for another 6 years. Since Mike Braun is stepping down to run for something else, there are several people that have put their name in the hat, specifically in the Republican field. We have Jim Banks, who we'll cover on another show, and we have John Rust, who was kind enough to take time out of his very busy schedule. Not only is he running for Senate, he runs, he's a farmer. He's an egg farmer. And I'll admit, I didn't know that much about egg farming before now, but it's huge. It's massive. Lots of people know eggs are one of those staples that you kind of can't do without, really, if you want a normal diet. So he was kind enough to take time out of his busy schedule running for Senate and being involved with his farm in order to appear with us. So I'm going to bring him on without further ado. I'm going to give him a couple minutes to introduce himself to you, the viewer, real quick. Hopefully you guys took the time to read his bio so he doesn't have to reiterate that. But here he is.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming. If you want to take just real quick and give people a quick rundown on who you are.
Okay. Yes, I am John Rust. I am the chicken farmer running for the United States Senate for the great state of Indiana. And isn't that an amazing thing, that a farmer, from a small town in Seymour, Indiana, can run for United States Senate. I think that's what democracy is all about. I have never ran for political office in all my life. I have only been a chicken farmer. I've worked, over 30 years, actually, probably 40. I started actually in 1978. I think we have a little bit of time, so I can get into that a little bit. I started gathering eggs when I was 10 years old during the blizzard years in 1977, 1978, when schools were closed. Us kids, we got to work on the farm. So I started out with a strong work ethic because people just couldn't make it into work with the roads being closed. So during the blizzard years back then, when it wasn't global warming, it was the coming ice age. And so I had firsthand experience with the ice age that was coming because it took me out of school and put me in the chicken house gathering eggs. And that was a wonderful thing. It taught me a strong work ethic. And, I've worked hard all my life, helping build my family's business. Today we feed over 15 million people every day.
Wow.
every day. It's over 8 billion eggs a year. And
That's a lot of eggs.
It's a lot of eggs. It's a lot of work. We have 1,500 employees here in Indiana. We have farms all across the state here in Indiana. My dad started in the 1950s out of the back of a pickup truck selling sweet corn and eggs up on the Indianapolis Farmers Market, where the Eli Lilly building is now, in that parking lot. That used to be the Indianapolis Municipal Market. And he started selling eggs 1947, 48, 49. In 47, 48, he was selling sweet corn to raise money for my family's church's pipe organ. And he did so well with that, or they raised $4,700 to pay for that pipe organ. He went back the next summer and kept selling sweet corn and also eggs from my grandparents to 500 hen chicken houses, which was a lot of eggs back then, even, for a small farmer. And so it grew and grew. And so, I started working, obviously when I was 10 years old, but that was just, during the blizzard years, but over time, I've done just about every job at Rose Acres, from working in chicken houses, packing eggs, working in the cooler, working in sales, sold eggs all across, New York City. We sell a lot of eggs in New York City, sell eggs in California, sell eggs, Florida, Texas, all across the United States. And so I've done almost all the jobs. I was chairman of the board up until August of this year, and, helped oversee running the company. And, but running for the United States Senate is a full-time job, and I want to be a full-time United States Senator. So I did not run for re-election for being chairman of the board, and I am 100% focused only on running for the United States Senate. But I am happy to answer any questions on eggs. I love eggs. So
okay, awesome. So there are a lot of people. No, by all means, there are a lot of people that think basically, if you don't have any political experience, then you don't belong in the political world. Now, I myself am of the opposite opinion. I think that we need regular, everyday Americans to change our country from the trajectory that it's currently on, which is a small group of special interests that control the direction this country is going. I think that not having political experience is actually a positive thing.
Oh, it's a huge positive. And I'm hearing this all over the state of Indiana. They are so happy to see a political outsider running. I've never ran for anything in my life. And for a lot of people, that's all they want to hear. They'll say, stop. I don't need to hear another word. I am absolutely voting for you. I hear that all the time because they are so sick of what career politicians are doing. Like Jim Banks, when he went to the House in 2016, the national debt per taxpayer was $170,000. Just after 4 terms with Jim Banks in Congress and all the other career politicians, it's went up over $100,000 just in 8 years.
Yeah.
And, what are they doing? They're kicking the can down the road, but it is crucifying our economy with this debt, and that's what's causing this massive inflation. The interest cost just on the debt now is approaching what we're spending on our military.
Oh yeah, it's insane.
It's absolutely insane. And so, one thing that's interesting, I'm going after Jim Banks because he won't show up for the job on May 31st of this year. We increased the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. Jim Banks came back to Indiana, or zoomed in from his house in Virginia, or wherever he was, and he said, "Oh, I'm against raising the debt ceiling." That very afternoon, he went on Capitol Hill and voted yes. After he said he was opposed, he voted yes to bring the debt ceiling vote or bill to the floor for consideration. Every member of this is what pisses me off, that's why I'm running. Every member of the quote unquote conservative Republican members of Congress voted yes to bring that to the floor, except for Victoria Sparks. She is the only one that's voted no to bring that to the floor. Jim Banks voted yes after he said he was opposed. Just an outright lie.
Yeah.
So,
and we see that.
Then he missed the vote after, that evening he disappeared.
One thing that I personally have seen is, and this is why I urge all of my viewers and anyone that follows me on social media, do your research. Look at forget about what's in the newspaper and what these people claim in front of a camera. Look at what they actually do. Look at the lives that they lead, the votes that they cast, and see what your representation is actually doing.
Right. I think people would just be shocked to hear what their quote unquote conservative Republicans are doing for them in Washington, D.C. It has no relationship to what they say when they're in Indiana. None
Absolutely.
at all. None at all. And, I'm sick of it. That's why I'm running, because, I decided back in January, our country is in a crisis, and the politicians, they want to distract by, having this impeachment vote there, or, saying this about this person there. Mm-hmm. All the while, our debt is going up and up and up. And, and they say, "Oh, I'm going to vote against it." And then we just went over what Jim Banks lied about on that. But the issue I have with all the Republicans in Congress is they vote for leadership that continually works with Democrats to pass the spending bills. Why are we even? It's incredulous to me that they just passed that one just this week. The CR, continues the funding for the government until March, right, I think, of this year. Mm-hmm. They passed that with majority Democratic votes, and Jim Banks and all these Republicans voted for the leadership that did that.
Right. And it's something that we've seen consistently over and over. The people that run for office make one claim, or even, once they're elected, they'll get in front of the cameras or run an article and say, I believe this, this, and this, and they get quoted on it. And then they vote differently, or they get on these committees, and we never see the actual promises that they've made to us ever come to fruition.
Right. And why this is? It's because they are beholden to the establishment. They're beholden to their party. They're beholden to the funding. They can't go there and work because they spend all their time dialing up for dollars to the large corporations and the PACs. And that's who they're working for. They're not working for Hoosiers. I want to work for Indiana. I want to work for Hoosier voters. I'm strictly very much a working class guy. I've worked all my life hard. I've done physical work all my life. And, that's an honorable thing. I just think it really bothers me when these people, that we pay these people a lot of money to go to Congress, and then they don't show up for the vote.
Right. Absolutely. I want to touch on that real quick before we get into the meaty stuff. This is not the first time that you and I have met. We met at the LaPorte Republican Christmas party.
Right.
Yep. And I just want to tell people that there was a lady that was with you. And how long have you known her?
That was Diane Audie, and she actually started working for my dad probably about 2 years after I was born.
See, and she's still with the company, right?
No, she's retired about 15 years ago, but she's volunteering and she travels around with me just, because she knows that I'm going to work for, the people of Indiana. And it's the same with my bus drivers, to drive I have a campaign bus, and that requires a CDL to drive it. I can't drive. I don't have a CDL, unfortunately. So I have drivers driving me around. And most of my drivers are Roseacre drivers who are retired from Roseacres a long time ago. They're still current. They still have their CDLs, and they're driving me because they believe in what I'm doing. They know that, they've worked with me all their lives. I've worked with them all their lives. And they know that I'm the real deal. I'm not some fake person doing this for vanity or whatever. They know that I'm going to go there and work my butt off. And they know I'm going to go there, and I'm going to raise the curtain. I'm going to shine the flashlight. And I'm going to say, look what's going on. These career politicians can't do that because they're getting paid off by, the defense contractors and the lobbyists. They can't do anything. I will be able to, because I'm not beholden to them. I'm not, look at my campaign records. You're not seeing any donations from the big defense contractors going to me.
Right.
And so I'm going to be able to say, hey, look, there's a senator named William Proxmire back in the 1980s, and he talked about toilet seats. Remember, the government was paying $3,000 for toilet seats back in the 1980s. And, everyone thought, oh, that's crazy. That's ridiculous. Why are we paying so much? We're paying $14,500 each toilet seat now.
Right.
And
Right.
it's and the career politicians, they can't say anything about that because they're getting money from the people that are getting the $14,500. So they're all in
Right.
on the take.
And bear in mind, this is, $14,500 for a toilet seat. And this is over and above what we're spending on these multi-billion-dollar aircraft and the multi-billion-dollar tanks,
Right.
all of this stuff, it all adds up. And we combined, and don't get me wrong, I'm a huge proponent for self-defense in the military,
Oh,
but we spend more than the next 6 countries combined on our defense. And are we as safe as spending the next 6 countries combined? And my argument is no, that money is not being effectively spent.
we just have to look at the dollars, and that's what I want to do with my Senate staff. A lot of people, they're going to say, "Oh, I want to use that staff really, quote unquote, to run for reelection." They won't say it, but their staff is really just working on, for political stuff. My staff is going to be going through line by line every government agency's fiscal drafts. I want to go through and look at everything, what everyone is spending, and I may not be able to stop it, but I'm going to try, and I'm going to shine the flashlight on it and say, "Hey, that's wrong. That's stupid. Why on earth are we doing that?" I absolutely do, though, 100% believe in having a lethal military. And then by lethal, I mean, the job of the military is to go out and kill people. Sorry, that's what it is, and we have to have that. It's not, not to have drag shows and whatever. It's to kill people. It's to defend the United States of America.
Right. Absolutely.
And that just seems lost today. The left wants to say, "Oh, we got to have, this woke military or whatever." No, we need to have a military that is, for defending the United States.
Right. Effectiveness is the key. Right. And the reason that I brought up your staffer was because I could see she's known you her whole life,
yes.
or your whole life, I should say. And this is a woman who is on her own time, such as it is. You said she's retired. She volunteered to help you with this. Who better than someone who has known you your whole life? And if she's willing to spend her twilight years, her retirement time to help you get this, that should tell people a lot about the kind of person that you are, in my opinion.
Right. And, I would love for people to visit my office in Seymour. I have a campaign office there at 316 West Tipton Street. If you want to stop by for a yard sign or bumper stickers or whatever. Karen Wiesahan is one of my people that work there. She's worked at Roseacre, at my family business, before I was even born. And so she retired about 2 years ago. And so when I announced I was running for Senate, she's like, "I want to help you out. I want to come in." And so she comes in and she works, from like 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day at the office there, just making sure, that for people that come in just for, for a bumper sticker or a hat or whatever, just, to, man the phones and, and hand out stuff for people coming in. And it's because she knows my family. I grew up with her. I don't like using the word employee. It's family. I worked with these people hand in glove all my life. They're the reason I'm here. Roseacres wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the people that work every day.
And that's kind of the key for me, is when you have people who have known you as long as these people have, and they're devoting their time and energy when they could be doing tons of other things. It says a lot about not only their character, but yours as well, that they're willing to devote that kind of time. It's easy to gather people who don't know you that are willing to collect a paycheck, whether it's to go door knock or do these things. But people who have known you for many, many years, they're willing to invest their time. That says a lot about people.
Right. Well, and like I said, I wouldn't be here but for her. They have worked their whole lives helping build the family business, helping feed Hoosiers and the world a incredible protein product. We are so blessed to be in the business we're in. When my dad started selling eggs in 47, 48, 49, he was getting 50 cents a dozen. If you adjust that for inflation today, that'd be over $6.
See, I'm glad you brought that up. Because a lot of people go to the grocery store and they grab their eggs, but they don't really think about the prices as opposed to the other things that are out there. You know, we noticed when like milk went up and eggs went up,
Right.
but comparatively,
I had a great, remind me to talk about when eggs went up. But eggs are they're an incredible value. $2 a dozen. A cup of coffee at Starbucks is $6.
Right.
And when people say, well, hang on a second, wait a second, $2 for a dozen eggs, we're just barely making money on that, to be honest. And that's okay. That's the free market at work. And that's what we love. And that's what we want. My family, we've been sued. Actually, Jim Banks likes to say, oh, we're out price gouging. We've actually been sued seriously, totally serious, for selling eggs too cheap by our competition. God's honest truth. It was a major court case, and I'm actually it's coming out soon in a story. It's incredulous that our competition sued my family because we were out, building these new farms in northern Indiana, up at Newton County, White County, Pulaski County, and putting lots of eggs in Indianapolis, and lots of eggs in Chicago, and lots of eggs in Cleveland, and lots of eggs in New York City, where I used to sell a lot of eggs, and that pissed off our competition bigly. To quote Donald Trump, they just did not like our modern large farms, because if you drive by our farms in Indiana, you'll see they're very big farms. There's over 1.6 million chickens per farm. That's a lot of chickens, a lot of eggs. And so we had to sell those eggs. And, because the farms are so big, we have a much lower cost to produce than our competition or the smaller farms. And so that is why when you go to the grocery store today, eggs are $2 a dozen and not $6 a dozen. It's because the farms are massively efficient. And so, and so when I hear this stuff on price gouging, I'm like, what on earth are they talking about? It's, I want to get into specifics on this case. Can I go ahead and do that now?
Absolutely.
Because, I get Jim Banks saying, oh, I'm a price gouger. And, I did that during COVID. Okay. First of all, during COVID, because that really annoys me greatly. My family, just like every other business in Indiana and the United States, we lost so much money during COVID. We lost so much of our business. The government shut down universities, the government shut down restaurants, the government shut down, so much of society.
Yep.
That was a large part of our egg business.
Mm-hmm.
And it evaporated. It evaporated. And so, my family, we had to actually sell one of our farms in Texas, and we had to sell our soybean meal processing plant here near Seymour, Indiana, just to make payroll. And we stayed in business. We made it. We did not take $1 of PPP loans, not $1.
Thank you. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because that's been a point of contention for a lot of people, is these companies and even individuals that jumped to take PPP loans. And that's something that I want people to pay close attention to, because you had the opportunity to, I'm sure, based on the fact that you have a large business and you were affected by COVID, I'm sure that you could have gotten PPP money, and probably rightly, but you didn't. So these lawsuits, we
made it, and we were, we're part of the United States. We're Americans, and,
right.
We're all on this together. And so I just felt, that it would be wrong for us to take that kind of stuff, because, we're in it to fight.
Right. Absolutely.
Just like everyone else. And it's very important for us, remember back when GM and Ford were taking the money from the federal government, and Ford refused. Yeah. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Ford, which, also it's not completely family owned. It's, but they still have a family ownership.
Right.
They didn't take the money.
Yeah. Ford was the only one.
Right. And I respect that. That's one of the reasons I drive around in a Ford F-150 pickup to today.
Fair enough.
And, but don't get me wrong. I love Chevy too, for everyone working at the Chevy plant.
Yeah. Before people are like, oh, you hate Chevy, because you know how it is on, online or social media. If you say you like something, that means you hate everything else.
No, we have Chevy and Ford trucks and Chrysler products too. So it's
right. Fair enough. Okay, I'm going to get into a couple.
My personal truck is a Ford F-150. Okay.
There you go. I'm going to get into a couple of what I like to call icebreaker questions, or questions that may or may not matter. To me, they're very important.
Okay.
And the most important one on the list to me is, how do you like your steak?
Medium rare.
Thank you. Okay, good. See, my wife's a communist and she likes it burnt and just like.
Well, so does Donald Trump. He likes them well done too.
I don't understand it, but that's the beauty of America. Everybody can do what, have their steak the way that they want. But cats or dogs?
Both. I have a German Shepherd puppy right now.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I love
3
puppies.
months old.
Nice. Okay. So up here in Northwest Indiana, donuts are a big thing. Munster donuts, especially. Is there a particular restaurant in your area that is like your favorite or super famous around your region or anything like that?
Well, we have this local smorgasbord called the Pines in Seymour, Indiana, and it's an after church tradition. So everyone, goes to church, in Seymour. And then right afterwards, we all congregate at the Pines for, fried fish, fried chicken. And interestingly, it's not a Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Okay.
They were one of the original licensees of Colonel Sanders' chicken recipe back in the 1950s. So they have a picture of Colonel Sanders on the wall. It's not a Colonel Sanders restaurant or a KFC restaurant at all, but they still have that license today by, keeping it current all for 70 years. Wow. They still have Kentucky Fried Chicken, but it doesn't say that anywhere. But it is the original KFC recipe.
Wow, that's awesome. That's why I ask questions like that, because you get little tidbits of information that are just amazing. Okay, what is your favorite sport?
Oh, when I went to IU, 1985 to 1990. I was the #1 IU basketball fan on the planet. I love Bobby Knight. We won the championship in 1987. The night we won that, I was down on Showalter Fountain and partying with everyone, and I got really sick, but I made it through. And after Bobby Knight, I still watch the games. I started to watch the game against Wisconsin last week, but I mean it's harder now. It's nicer when we're winning, of course. But so basketball. I really love basketball. They were always after me to play football in high school, but I couldn't do any after school sports myself because I was always working.
Okay, all right, fair enough. All right, I'm going to get into some of the more meaty questions, I guess. One that's really important that I think a lot of people take for granted. If elected, at the very first meeting at the U.S. Senate, the parties come together to choose the leader. Do you have someone in mind that you would pick? And more importantly, are you going to vote for Mitch McConnell?
No, I'm not going to vote for Mitch McConnell. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And no, let me cross that bridge, when I win. But, this is why I'm running. I am so sick of career politicians, and that's just the epitome of it. If you're for Mitch McConnell being majority leader now, it's
right. Yeah.
And Mitch McConnell did some great things back in the day. I think, look at what he did with the Supreme Court. He was able to get, Supreme Court justices working with Trump to actually get stuff done. So, I recognize that and I support stuff like that. But, when you're just an obstructionist and you're doing it just for your own career or to be an obstructionist, it's time to move on. I think that's why people are interested in me as being their senator, because they want someone that will go and work for them and not just be part of the political establishment and, start lining up, so that, I will run for majority leader, down the road or whatever. No, I have zero interest in that. I am going just because I want to work for Hoosiers. And I think I will have incredible power for Hoosiers, because I believe the Senate's going to be very evenly divided for the next decade, just if you look at demographics.
Okay.
And I think I will be able to be a true voice for conservatives, especially because I will not be beholden to the parties or the special interests. I will always be able to do what's right for Indiana every time. And that's very important to me.
Yes, absolutely. I think that has been kind of fallen by the wayside, such as it is with the changes to how how senators are elected. I believe it's the 17th Amendment when they changed it. So a lot of these people get there and they tend to work for Washington rather than the state that they come from.
Right. And also, I will always still live in Indiana. I've worked, don't get me wrong, I've worked all over the United States. My family, we sell eggs, like I said, New York City, California, all over. I travel all over quite a bit, or I did. But when I'm in the United States Senate representing Indiana, I'm going to come home to Indiana every time I possibly can. And, I've told people in my church, I said, if you don't see me here, you come to Washington, grab a lasso or whatever, grab me by my neck and pull me by my hair back, because I do not ever want to be one of these politicians that, buy some $1 million home in Virginia like Jim Banks and lose touch with Hoosier voters.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was listening to the I can't remember the guy's name, Hakeem Shabad. You were on his radio show, Abdul, yeah. And you mentioned that, and at the time that I heard it, I'm like, oh wow, where can people go to find out more information about that? Because that's something that I think everyone should be aware of.
Well, I don't want to dox anyone, but I mean, he has $1 million home in Virginia. Okay. And him and his people are spending all their time saying, oh, my mailbox is 1.5 miles from where I live in the woods in southern Indiana. His mailbox is 580 miles from the state of Indiana.
Okay. All right.
And he's complaining about my mailbox. It's,
so
when you have a horrible record, all you can do is attack the other person. And that's, I want to fight for ideas. I want to fight for true conservative ideas. Everyone's, they're saying, oh, you're a Democrat, or I'm Soros backed.
Right. Okay. So yeah. I saw this article. Right? Yeah, I saw this article that was something about these. Okay, so the lawsuit that. Okay, yeah, they jumped on basically as co-litigators on the lawsuit that you filed.
They just filed friend of the court. It's not friend of me. They're friend of the court. An amicus thing. Saying yes, we agree this decision should be overturned. I had nothing to do with that. Didn't ask them to do that. Nothing to do with it. And then Jim Banks. They're like,
right. They jump.
They're grasping at straws because they're, frankly, they're so embarrassed by that law. That law was so brutally unconstitutional that kept 81% of Hoosier voters from being able to run for political office. No one can defend that. 81%.
That's huge.
The only people that could defend that are the people that are in the machinery, and they are so blinded by what they've done all their lives. They have so lost touch with Hoosiers. They don't know the real world anymore. And so if they think, oh, the 81%, they don't deserve to be able to run for political office unless I sign off on it.
Right.
And that's what people are so upset about. That's why I think they're going to come to me, because they're like, finally, an outsider who's willing to put his money where his mouth is running for the United States Senate. And a big deal. This is huge. I'm spending millions and millions of dollars on this, or I will be, absolutely. It is all donation from what I'm giving to my campaign. It is not a loan. That is a huge, major distinction. That means when I go to the United States Senate, I won't be out there with a tin cup saying, pay back my loan so I can pay back what it cost me to run for the United States Senate to represent people in Indiana. No, the only people I will be beholden to are Indiana voters, and I absolutely, intend to run for it 2 terms. And I want, when I run for re-election, I want people to say, my gosh, finally, we had someone that voted exactly how he said he would vote when he's in Indiana. And, I think I'll win by a landslide because, especially for re-election, because people are going to be like, he's so conservative. He's genuine. He's what he is. He's not fake. He doesn't pretend to be, for one politician or the other. That's what I can't stand about Jim Banks. He pretends to be whatever is popular at the moment is what he's for. And it's not any core belief that he has. It's whatever's politically popular at the moment. So in 2017 and 2018, he's going around talking to the Atlantic Monthly magazine.
I did see that.
About, how he disagrees with Donald Trump, on fiscal policy. He disagrees with Donald Trump on foreign policy. He disagrees with Donald Trump on trade policy. I'm sorry. Those were the key highlights of Donald Trump's presidency. And Jim Banks is on the record disagreeing with it. He's on the record. That's not me lying about it. That's me just stating the fact that that's him saying that himself in an interview.
Right.
And I calls for, and then the biggest thing, the hugest thing, he called at that time for an influx of immigration to our region. Those were his exact words. Well, he certainly got it. We've had 8 million illegal immigrants come into the United States since Jim Banks said that. 8 million. That's more than the population of Indiana. And, we have to have a real border wall. And it can't be just, let's add 20 miles of fence here or 200 miles there. It has to be all the way. Yep, there it is. Yep. It has to be all the way from the Pacific Ocean to the Gulf of Mexico. Anything less, it's just political grandstanding, and it's kicking the can down the road, and they say, the border wall, it's too expensive. And so back in 2017 and 2018, the Republicans in Congress, less than 25% supported border wall funding.
It's a truth.
And today, we're for border wall funding today. They're for whatever's popular at the moment. And
right.
I want to get real solutions. Then I want to go there and I want to get the wall built. $21 billion. That's a drop in the bucket compared to what illegal immigration is costing us. The cost on illegal immigration, and this is why the Republicans in Congress really didn't push it, is because they want cheap labor in the United States for their corporate benefactors. I want to be able to pay, people that work at Rose Acres as much as we possibly can. That's, I want, a rising tide lifts all boats. Wages go up, Social Security tax will come up, Medicaid tax will come up, government receipts will come up without raising 1 penny or any tax bracket. And so, now we're saying, Jim Banks is on the record, as chairman of the Republican Study Group, saying, that he wants to cut Social Security by raising the retirement age for working people. I absolutely am opposed to that. You can't make people work until they die. I just don't believe that.
Right.
For instance, I'm from Seymour, Indiana. There's one really famous person from Seymour, Indiana, John Mellencamp. And but guess what? I have never met him, but his mom was my mail lady. I
didn't even know his mom was a mail lady.
Yeah, she was. And it surprised a lot of us because, her son this was back in the early 1980s. Yeah. And her son was already a famous rock star. And she was out delivering the mail. And she had I think it was like a 1981, 82 Pontiac Tempest or something like that. It was filing cabinet tan. And the side door was all scratched up by when you open up the mailboxes, the lid would scratch her car door up. Yeah. So she had one car that she used just for delivering the mail. Anyhow, she brought a package up to the house one day, and I happened to be there. And she said, we were talking. I said, "Why are you still working?" And she says, "I'm still working because I want to get my full retirement benefit." That's a Hoosier value.
Yep.
She didn't have to. Her son was mega rich, wonderfully famous. John Mellencamp, some of the most wonderful songs ever written, in my opinion. And his mom did not have to work, but she was going to get her complete retirement that she worked her whole life for. And she wasn't going to quit just because, her son was famous. She was going to, complete it. And that's a Hoosier value. And that's why I think you can't just pull the rug out from under people by raising the retirement age continuously. You solve the problem with Social Security by actually building the border wall. If the border wall is actually built, there will be a melt up of wages for working people. That's what I want to see. That's, you can't have 8 million illegal immigrants coming across here and not expect wages to be depressed. Wages have went up, but they have not went up with inflation.
No, they haven't. They haven't.
And until we solve that, so people say, well, we're going to go to DC to solve the problem. The number one problem we have is our border. We have to have that because it feeds into so many problems. It feeds into Social Security. It feeds into government tax receipts. We have to get real wages up. We're not going to get real wages up until we have the border wall built.
Yeah. So going back to the national debt, For our viewers, I want to explain what baseline budgeting is. It's where every U.S. program gets more money than it did in the previous year. The only way to stop it being raised is by Congress voting for it. Do you support Congress ending baseline budgeting?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't believe any government agency is entitled to every dollar that they got this year just because they spent it last year.
Right.
I know that government agencies, where they go, you hear this all the time, where they go there and they spend all their money because if they don't spend it all, they won't be able to spend the same money next year. That's why, with my Senate staff, I want to go in and actually dig into this stuff and find out what's being wasted. Because I may not be able to find $1 trillion, but I guarantee I'm going to find billions and billions. Because I'm going to look, and that's what I'm going to spend my time doing. Because I want to work. I just this is what I've done my whole life.
What committees would you like to be on if given the option?
Agriculture. I'm very interested, obviously, in agriculture because farming is so important to not just Indiana, but everyone likes to eat, and we're under threat from China, and look at what's happening with China trying to take over the meat industry. They bought major meat producers in the United States, and it's part of the thing where Jim Banks is attacking my family. We're being sued for this price fixing thing, quote unquote, allegedly. It's all because these mega corporations worth hundreds of billions of dollars. These are it's not, these aren't small companies, these are mega corporations. They don't want us to have a fair price for our eggs. If we don't have a fair price for our eggs, we can't pay farmers a fair price for their corn, and we can't pay a fair wage for the folks that are working on our farms. If you show up for work, and it's not just my family's business, this is across the board, all across the state of Indiana. If you are showing up for work, you deserve a wonderful wage because you're working. Right. And, I respect that, and we have to reward that. And it just bothers me so greatly that these career politicians don't. It pisses me off, and this is why I'm spending millions of dollars of my own money to run for this, because I am so sick of these career politicians doing that. It is infuriating. It is infuriating, and this debt ceiling thing over as everyone's like, oh, you're not going to be able to make a difference. Yes, I will be able to, because I'm going to be there and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to be more than a thorn in the side. I'm going to be there, shining the flashlight, raising the curtain, and, screaming my head off on stuff that I see that is wrong. Because they can't. Jim Banks can't. He's beholden to the special interests. He's muzzled. They're not going to muzzle me.
Okay. All right. And you know what? One thing that I want to say to people, one of the big, things that came of Trump running for office and the issues that arose from that with the media attacking him is I am not concerned, honestly, with people that already made their money and want to use that to pursue political office. I'm more concerned with the people that went into it and are now worth way more than they should be based on their yearly salary. That's my big concern.
Right. I've done very well. I've done very, I've worked hard. I invested very smartly. The money I'm spending for my campaign is not from the egg farm. It's from, I've done very well on private investments, and I'm spending that money. So I'm actually going to Washington to get quote unquote poor. I'm certainly not going there to get rich. And so I'm saying this on the record. When I go to Washington, I will not be trading individual stocks in any company.
That's huge.
And I am promising that. And if I have any money to invest, I don't know that I will. If I do, it will only go into the Vanguard S&P 500 index, which is just an index fund that, tracks the 500 largest corporations in the United States. Right. It's nothing that, any politician could affect. And so what I'm saying is I'm not going there to get, information on a specific stock to trade General Dynamics stock, or whatever. No, I'm absolutely not. And if you ever see me doing that, come out to DC and, pull out your belt and whip me. I mean, it's wrong. I just don't believe that. I'm going there because, my family's been blessed. My family has lived the American dream. And, I think it's time for people like me that, we're trying to preserve it for future generations. What am I doing with my time on earth? this kind of hit me all at once to run for the United States Senate. Last fall, I got on Twitter a little bit, and after Elon Musk opened Twitter back up for free speech, because free speech, in my opinion, was killed for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
we didn't have free speech on the internet, at least until Elon Musk bought Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went on Twitter, and it's like, oh my gosh, finally you can express yourself again. You can say something and not have your posts removed.
Right.
I don't care what anyone's opinion is. You're all entitled to anyone should be entitled. This is America. I believe in freedom of speech. And so that excited me. I'm like, well, finally, at least we have that free. And so I'm like, well, this is a big step. And some people say, well, you're crazy for wanting to run for that. And I'm like, well, I'm only on this planet once. I have to meet God someday. What did I do with my time on earth? I see what these politicians are doing in DC, and I know I can go there and make a difference, genuinely, right. Sincerely. And so that's why I'm doing it, and that's why they are scared shitless of me. They're in full panic mode over me, because they know, I will be I'll never use that word very rather than what I was going to say. I will be a very consequential United States Senator for the state of Indiana. Jim Banks, if he gets in, he's going to be a consequential senator for Mitch McConnell.
I will say this. I truly believe, and this is just my opinion, this is not anything else, but we need someone in there who's actually going to stand up. And my prediction, if Jim Banks does win, I believe he's just going to be another Todd Young. And that's just my opinion at best.
Jim Banks, he has no choice. That's who funds him.
Right.
Jim Banks, he has no voice. Jim Banks is muzzled. Jim Banks has a mask.
Right.
He whatever his intentions were when he got into political office, he is spending his days dialing for dollars from the corporate interest and from special interest. There are 7 lobbyists for every member of Congress just from the prescription drug industry.
It's insane.
Just from one industry, the prescription drug industry. So we look, why are our prescription costs so high?
Right. It's easy to see.
There are 7 people out in DC, paying off these politicians.
Right. Right.
And so
Eli Lilly is a very, very powerful entity here.
They're huge.
Yeah.
And they have some very important drugs. And my dad, I gotta say this, my dad got started in the Eli Lilly parking lot, where the farmers market used to be. So I don't want to besmirch Eli Lilly. It's a great Indiana company, but I'm not going to be beholden to them. That means that I can work for Hoosiers to watch what your prescription drug prices are. There are these things called PBMs. Pharmacy Benefit Managers. This is a middle company between the drugstores and the drug manufacturers that set the price for drugs that Hoosiers are paying for their prescription drugs. Mm-hmm. Who owns these PBMs? Who sets these prices? When you look at them, it's these middlemen that are owned by CVS mm-hmm. and the other large drug companies.
Right.
And, this topic was brought up to me, and I'm like, yes, I absolutely want to dig into this, and I'm going to be talking about this a lot. The politicians across the state, they won't touch the PBM things. And you heard, I'm not going to name any names, but I mean, you heard what these career politicians are saying. Oh, PBMs are wonderful. They're lowering drug costs for Hoosiers and all that. No. Bullshit. I'm sorry. Bullshit. You're right. I'm sorry. I am so sick of what these career politicians are doing and that's why I'm running. And that's why they are scared shitless of me running, because they know I will be able to work for Hoosiers, and that's why they're doing everything they can in their power to try to keep me off the ballot.
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
It's so transparent. And, and so they're scared, but I'm going to get in there. I'm going to win. And I think I'm going to be the success story for you and for everyone in Indiana to say, my gosh, finally, we put someone in that isn't a whore of the special interest. I'm sorry. I'm mad. You know,
I don't blame you.
I'm spending millions of dollars. I'm so mad.
And that's the thing. And it's really, really nice to talk to someone who's running for office who actually shows passion about something and means it, rather than just going down through the talking points and saying, oh yeah, I love Trump. Yeah. But there are obviously things that matter to you and you get passionate about that. And I appreciate that.
Well, and okay, this is a key thing. We just opened up a groundbreaking for a new farm in Arizona in May of this year, and I was out there and I was getting ready to give a speech. And so one of the things I always do, I always go into the local grocery store and check on egg prices so I can report that in my speech, because it's very important to me, obviously. Mm-hmm. And while I was in there, I was walking back through the grocery store. There was a retired couple walking down the snack aisle, and the wife said to her husband, "Why don't you go grab your bag of chips you like?" And he looked at him. He says, "Honey, they're $7."
Wow.
I'm going to skip them this week. We'll get them next week. That's what upsets me.
Yeah.
Inflation like that. It's a couple that has worked their entire lives can't afford a bag of chips.
Right.
That's what pisses me off, and that's why I'm running, because I am so sick of what our quote unquote political leaders are doing to us. Mm-hmm. To us. And it's not the food manufacturers who are doing that, it's the government. The food manufacturers, they got to pay their people to pack that bag of chips. They got to pay the farmer for the potatoes that go into it. Right. They got to pay for the exorbitant diesel fuel prices. I don't know if you know what diesel fuel prices are. Gas prices come down a little bit, but diesel fuel is still very expensive.
Yeah, diesel's still astronomical.
Right. And it's all because, we have inept government, with Joe Biden, mm-hmm. and the career politicians who are working with him to continue all this reckless spending. So again, I think I'm going to be actually able to do something that a lot of people can't, and it's just because they don't know me, and that kind of scares me, because they're like, I get people say, "You better watch out. You better hire bodyguards or whatever," because I'm the real deal. And when I go to DC, I'm going to be such an important voice for Hoosiers that, people are just going to be taken aback that finally we have someone that says and is doing what he says. And that's why they're scared. Jim Banks, all he does is he spends his time attacking me. If he had any kind of record that he could run on, he wouldn't have to mention me.
I mean, I will say he does spend an inordinate amount of time simply speaking negative about you rather than talking about his accomplishments for the, what'd you say, 3 terms that he's been in office?
4 terms. That's why I believe in term limits. And 2 terms for me, and I'm out of there. If I'm out there after 2 terms, I'm saying this on the record, record this, play it back over and over, come out with a ball bat and just, say, hey, you said 2 terms, we're holding you to it. Because I'm not just saying that, and I'm going to go there and fight for term limits and try to get a bill passed to do it or whatever. I'm living by it by myself. George Washington did that. He didn't need a law to say he only needed to serve 2 terms.
Right. He stepped down. They wanted him to keep going.
And he got out of there. He went back to his farm in Virginia. Mm-hmm. After 2 terms in Washington, I want to come back to my farm in Indiana and be with the chickens again.
I could see that.
Well, and it's, I DC, I've been there. We've been in court there before, and I've, visited, Congress and all that before. Mm-hmm. It has no quote unquote allure for me other than to go there to work.
Right.
That's what the allure is for me, is to go there and work hard and get stuff done for Hoosier voters, and to vote how I say I'm going to vote, and how you're hearing me tonight on how I'm voting. And I can't wait. I'm excited, because
I'm very excited too.
I think I'm going to be consequential, and people are just going to say, my gosh, who is this guy? Who's this egg farmer? I say egg farmer, but for me, that's my heart. I love being a farmer, and so some of the people say, well, you're just a farmer, you shouldn't be running for political office.
No, I think that's exactly who needs to run.
I think that's exactly it's exactly who needs to run. We need someone that has common sense and a work ethic. One more thing, I want to address this a little bit because this is important, because I want to say this for, because there's a lot of people in Indiana that have to work weekends, they have to work Saturdays, they have to work Sundays. I know that. Mm-hmm. My family's business, we work 7 days a week. Chickens lay eggs 7 days a week. We can't take holidays off, Christmas off. On Christmas Day, I was at one of our farms and, visiting with people because, I know they would much rather be with their families on Christmas morning, but, we have to come in and pack eggs and work. And there's a lot of people like that. And I recognize that. And, one of my main jobs as chairman of the board of Rose Acres was going around to all of our farms. I visited all of our farms every month. We had 16 farms in 7 states. So I spent a lot of time, for 30 years driving and flying and, traveling around to all the farms. And I always tried to do it on weekends because that's when, the folks are having to work and I want to be there on Sunday morning. I'll miss church a lot. I miss church a lot because I was on the farms. And so, I have that perspective of the world that I think is different from a lot of people, especially from career politicians. What really annoys me I'm not sorry to be so negative on Jim Banks. They go to work, I have to work 7 days a week. Jim Banks, Congress goes into session, noon Tuesday, and they leave noon Thursday.
Yeah. They have almost half the year off.
And they have and then when they're there, they're only there 2 days.
Right.
So he spends literally his entire day dialing for dollars.
Yeah.
Selling himself on the street. You know what that is?
Yeah. I mean, you're not.
I'm so blessed. I don't have to do that, but that means I can work for Hoosiers, and it's such a huge distinction, and that's why they are so scared of me.
Right. I can see that. I do want to get into a couple of questions real quick that are really important to some of the viewers. Who do you believe is the United States' number one geopolitical foe?
Oh, that's easy. China and Russia. Absolutely.
Okay. If you had to pick between the two, do you think China's a bigger threat or Russia's a bigger threat?
It's kind of equal, in my opinion, because, they both got lots of nuclear weapons and they're both enemies of the United States, and to pretend otherwise is not realistic.
Okay.
We have China. China's a big deal because, economically they're trying to take over our country.
Right.
And
buying up farmland,
by the farmland and by, the means of production. And, Russia, they're, it's
right.
Bad folks in charge there. And I get that. And, it's, you cannot be soft ever. That's why we have to have a lethal defense always. So.
Right. And that goes back to the military and the waste of spending there. And that's why it's really, really important, in my opinion, that we have someone who's willing to get in there and get to the bottom of where all this defense money is going. Where is it being wasted? Where is it being used properly?
Right.
What is the number one challenge the United States faces today, in your opinion?
I think our number one challenge is illegal immigration.
Yeah.
Pure and simple. And, I was just on the border wall over Christmas, and there wasn't a border wall. There was a 3-foot high barbed wire fence and some old rails for literally hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
And, you go to my websites and you can see the video, all it was keeping out was a cow. And
wow. Yeah.
We don't have a border today. And then and people say, oh, that's trite. Just building a border wall is not going to solve anything. I talked to a lot of agents down there and they said, yes, it will. What happens is if the full border wall is really built and it's, 30 feet high or whatever, that Trump wants to do, which I agree with, if it's a real wall, that slows it down to where the agents can get into where people are coming across. Right now, it is so porous, for thousands of miles, they can't do anything. That's why you have to have the real wall from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean. And, what annoys me on these career politicians, and you saw what I said about the Republicans in Congress, less than 25% of them supported the border wall in 2017. They're quote unquote for it today, but, once they get in office, in my opinion, I'm sorry to say this, but if Jim Banks makes it to the United States Senate, there is no way in hell we will ever have a border wall.
Right. And that brings up another question, which is, what is one thing that you can do as a U.S. Senator to address the current border issue?
I am going to be a thorn in the side until that wall is built. It's and what really annoys me is they say, oh, it's too expensive. $21 billion was what it was going to cost back in 2017, 18. That is a drop in the bucket compared to what the cost is on illegal immigration. I saw a figure, it's $350 billion a year is what we're spending because of illegal immigration.
Oh my goodness. And we send more money than that to Ukraine. I mean, in a very short amount of time.
Not one more penny to Ukraine until the wall is built, period, and funded completely. I'm sorry. That's just where I'm at. And, people may say, well, that's not right or whatever. I'm sorry. We have to defend the United States first. And I am so sick to death of these politicians that, they may sound like me, but they go there and they'll never follow through on it.
Right.
Mitch McConnell will put his thumb on his stooge, Jim Banks, and Jim Banks will do whatever Mitch McConnell tells him to do because he can't say no because he's owned by the Mitch McConnell money machine. Mitch McConnell has maxed out his donations to Jim Banks. It's just obvious. Yeah.
And these are things that I think the average American is waking up to and understanding that we have to try something different. We've been in this rut of sending the exact same types of people and the exact same people to Washington. Look at what's happening, ladies and gentlemen. We need to do something else because this isn't working right now.
Right. And that's why I 100% support Donald Trump for president. He, God love him. He has his issues. Don't get me wrong, but I 100% support him and love him to death. He loves America. You can just tell, when he goes and hugs the American flag, that's genuine. That's not fake.
Right.
He absolutely positively loves America. And my dad, ingrained that in me. I'm a child of the 70s. So there, in 1976, I was around for the bicentennial. I was 9 years old at the time. And my dad put up these 100-foot tall flagpoles at Gin Acres and Rose Acres here in southern Indiana. And we put these giant flags up. And so you see all these flags everywhere on my campaign bus and everything. That's not something, I'm just doing this year or whatever. My family has been flying the American flag proudly since, at our farm since 1976. So if you go to our farms up north at Pulaski County, White County, Newton County, and, you will see these large flagpoles in front, proudly flying the American flag, and those have been there since the farms were built. So it's not something that I'm doing just because it's politically astute or whatever. It's because I love America, and I'm just, I'll bleed red, white, and blue. So.
Right. And I think that's really important because you notice when people run for office, suddenly they have a flag on their car or they have, they wear the little lapel pin. But this is something that your family has embraced for
years and years and years. My dad, we used to have this policy. We don't anymore. We should get it back. My dad used to pay people that worked at the company $100 a month to drive a new white car. And part of the deal on that is you had to have an American flag sticker and have that on the front right windshield and the rear left windshield.
Oh.
And so, we've been doing that since the 1970s. And
I like
that program went away about 15 years ago or something like that. But it's just, so yeah, we've been doing the American flag with love. Our whole existence just about. Since I've been around. And so it's not anything fake. It's genuine 100%.
So you covered this before, but I just want to make sure that everyone, all the viewers understand you are definitely in support of term limits and you would vote
100%. And I'm going to live by them. Even if the law's not passed, I'm 2 terms and I'm out of there. I just, I may be a wonderful, fantastic, I think I will be a wonderful, fantastic senator. And people may say, oh, please don't leave. I'm sorry, I'm getting out of there because someone else needs to come in that hasn't been in Washington for 12 years like I will have been. And they're going to have fresh ideas and it's going to be time for someone else.
Right.
And that's what I have. That's my issue with, like people like Mitch McConnell and stuff like that. they've served their time. They need to go out and do something else. There's more to life than being, a senator or a congressman or whatever,
Right.
And they got to realize that, I'm not going, people that go there for a career, they don't have experience in the real world, in the real world, I've smelled a lot of manure on chicken farms. I smelled, I've experienced and lived the real world all my life, and I want to go back to that someday. George Washington did that. He loved going back to his farm, and I want to do the same. It's extremely important to me.
Fair enough. Okay, so I know your website is rust2024.com. I'm going to throw up the in order to connect with you on social media. You're on Facebook and X, Twitter.
Yes.
Is there any other social media platforms that you use, or
just those for now? They may be working on Instagram for me. I don't know. I'm I don't spend my time looking at my phone all day. That's what bothers me about politicians. If you look at Jim Banks, he sits there and he tweets all day. Are we paying him $170,000 a year to sit there and tweet from his house in Virginia? Or are we paying him $170,000 to be a U.S. congressman and, to actually do his job and go up on Capitol Hill and look into the books, find out why we're spending all this money on whatever?
Right.
No, he wants to spend his time on Twitter, being a hall monitor for whatever is going on somewhere else in the world. The job of the United States Senator is not to be a hall monitor and go around and slap people on the knuckles. The job of the United States Senator is go there and represent taxpayers and voters, and to do your job of exercising fiscal oversight and responsibility. And that's what I'm good at my family's business, and that's what I will be excellent at, I believe, in the United States Senate.
Fair enough. Is there anything like if people want to get involved with your campaign to help you, what should they
go to rust2024.com and fill out a thing, and I will answer it. I answer all my emails that come in, and I would love to talk to people. I travel around the bus in my campaign bus all over, across the state. I've been to every county of Indiana, all 92 counties. And I just think that's important. I know some people kind of razz people for that and say, well, that's not important and all that. But for me, it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important, because I want people to know that I'm working for the entire state, for everyone in the state.
Right.
And, so I've been around and I've got signatures in every county of the state. So all 92 counties, I have signatures turned in, and we are gathering those up right now. And I'll actually be getting some tomorrow and the next day. I have over 9,000 right now.
Wow.
And so yeah, I'll easily have the minimum, the 500 per congressional district.
Right.
So I'll have that covered. And, and some people are like, well, you should challenge that part of the law and get that thrown out. And, I think you have to have some support from the people.
Right.
And,
right.
And, if you want to talk about, one thing, if you have time, I would love to get into this a little bit. Actually.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One thing that I would like to address is, I think, maybe lower the signature requirement, but require the candidates to get the signatures themselves. So, that you're not just out paying, XYZ company to go door to door for you. I loved going door to door, downtown Indianapolis and some really rough neighborhoods, and I loved it. And, I had people, answer the door with guns.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I was able to, convince them to sign my ballot petition. I was very proud of that. And because, I am very, very pro Second Amendment. I believe, I got a shotgun for Christmas when I was like 12 years old. I mean, that's what farm boys love guns. So it's
right.
And so it's just, that kind of thing. I'm genuine. If you meet me on the street, people always say this, you're so much like your TV commercial or whatever. I'll be exactly the same wherever I am. And please don't be shy. If you see me shopping at the Walmart or wherever, come up and say hi. I would love to talk to you. And when I make it to Capitol Hill, which I believe I will, make sure whoever you are, look me up. I want to visit with you. Stop by my office, because I'm there working for you. I'm not there for the special interest. That's
right.
Very, very important to me. So please stop by. I want to talk to you and, do a selfie with you. That's extremely important to me, because I just want people to know that he's genuine. He's real. He's exactly how he appears to be, because I am, I think.
You currently, so you're from Seymour. You have other campaign offices set up across the state right now?
Not right yet, but I'm getting ready to get one. I
Okay.
want to get one up by LaPorte, actually.
Oh, okay. Right by me. Okay.
Right by you. Yep.
Good.
I think it's very important that I am, because I'm representing the entire state, not just Southern Indiana, and so
Right.
I have to, I want to spend a lot of time up there. I'll be up there actually tomorrow, no, Thursday night.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Before I
All right.
see up there, yep. So I'll be up there and getting my ballot petitions from the LaPorte County Courthouse, I hope.
Okay.
And turning in a few more signatures. I had some that were mailed in to me. I got to get turned in yet. It's very important to me. If you sign my ballot petition, I want to make sure it gets in. Even if I have way more than enough, I'm still getting them because, I just believe in democracy. That's why I wanted to address a little bit.
Yeah.
This is going to be controversial, and this is where the establishment's really going to go after me hard on this.
Okay.
I believe Indiana should have ballot initiatives.
Okay.
I think we have to, let the will of the people speak. Look at what happened in California. And that started out as a property tax revolt in California back in the 1970s and 1980s. You have to, I think, listen to the people. The politicians don't want to listen to the people. And so that's why they do these laws that preclude people, outsiders. That's why they try to keep me off the ballot, because they're scared of someone other than them making the laws. And I just believe in democracy, and I believe in majority rule. And I believe that we have to, listen to people, and it's just so egregious in Indiana with that 2 primary rule, which was so anti-democratic. I just can't believe they even tried to defend it. It's incredible.
Yeah. And the courts seem like they handed it down fairly quickly as far as a decision goes in your favor. And of course it's being appealed, and it's, going to go on from there.
It's being appealed, but because it was ruled unconstitutional by 5 different constitutional reasonings.
Right.
Right.
It wasn't just one.
I just have to win one for
Yep.
the people of Indiana, for the 81%. We'll be okay, right. I think. The Indiana Constitution, because this law was passed, and it really became it changed the Constitution without going through the constitutional amendment process.
Right.
Because it changed the age of eligibility. So it precluded young people, for instance, to run for political office, because you couldn't run for political office if you lived in a rural area until you were 22 or 21 years old.
Right. Because
so for instance, John Russ, why didn't you just vote in 2 primaries in a row? Well, it's people that live in rural areas can only vote in primaries, at least where I'm at, every 2 years. We don't have an election in the rural areas every year. In cities, I know you do, and Seymour they do, in Brownstown. But I live in the woods, literally. I'm a farmer. I'm not a city.
Right.
So anyhow, so it was that, and then on the U.S. Constitution, it's the 14th Amendment, the right of free association. Mm-hmm. And so the Republican Party is wanting to say, oh, we want to decide who Republicans are. You can't come and join us if we don't think you're a quote unquote Republican.
Right.
And I've been a Republican all my life. Yes, I used to vote in some Democratic primaries for a guy that went to my church, because I wanted someone that was pro-business and pro-farming elected at the local county level. But I have only ever, and you can check this out on the FEC website, I have only ever in my life given to Republican candidates, extremely conservative Republican candidates, including Ted Cruz in 2016.
Fair enough.
I think that shows very clearly that I'm a true blue conservative.
Yeah, it would be kind of hard for a Democrat to explain why they gave to Ted Cruz, in my opinion.
Right. It's the Banks team is desperate.
Yeah.
And so everything they do, where they're talking about my mailbox being a mile and a half away from my house.
Yeah.
And Jim Banks lives 580 miles away, from the state of Indiana entirely. everything they do, it just reeks of desperation.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and people are like, oh, the latest thing was he's George Soros backed, just bullshit. you know, if anyone's George Soros backed, it's Jim Banks. Jim Banks voted for the First Step Act, which released Mohammed Youssef Hammoud, a terrorist financier, out of prison early. Jim Banks voted for that. And then he accuses me of being with Soros, and he's the one, George Soros is out there, funding prosecutors who will not prosecute crimes. Jim Banks is out letting people out of prison early. Fentanyl dealers, 300 people die in the United States every day from fentanyl overdoses and fentanyl poisoning just from accidental exposure to fentanyl.
Mm-hmm.
Fentanyl drug dealers are released almost every day from federal prison because of the First Step Act that Jim Banks supported. It's just infuriating how much fentanyl is coming across the border wall. When, the Republicans, we had the House, the Senate, and the presidency in 2017 and 18. We could have built the border wall.
Yeah.
$21 million was nothing for
Absolutely.
what it's cost us. Nothing. And they kicked the can down the road. They didn't want to build the border wall. You saw that only 25% of Republicans in the Congress wanted to support border wall funding, and Jim Banks was calling for an increase in immigration.
Yeah, that's terrifying. That's terrifying. I mean, it really is.
That's why they're scared of me, because they're like, oh my gosh, he's going to call me out for what I've done. My record's so horrible. So I have to say he's George Soros back, but I'm the one working with George Soros. Jim Banks, he's right there with releasing the terrorists and the drug dealers and the murderers. Mm-hmm. And this wall and crime. Look what crime is doing. Look at what crime's doing in Indianapolis. Yeah. Look at what shoplifting. Everything is, going out of control. The murder rate is up 33% since the First Step Act was passed. 33% the murder rate is up.
Now, is that the First Step Act? Is that the one that Trump
yes, Trump signed into law, and he touted it, but he intended it to be for minor offenses.
Right.
The problem is Soros-backed politicians in Congress put in all these loopholes for the terrorists and the drug dealers, and Jim Banks went along with that. I won't. There were Senator Tom Cotton back then when it came through. He raised the red flag immediately. He said, "Hey, wait a second, stop! This is stupid. We shouldn't be doing this." I
remember that. Yeah, I remember Cotton saying, "Hold on, these amendments and additions that they put in are definitely concerning." And no one wanted to listen to it.
And we're paying the price for that today because frankly, the career politicians don't. Jim Banks, he didn't spend the time to look at the bill he was, voting for, because he was spending his time, raising money from the defense lobbyists or, the drug companies or whoever. He's, that's where I'll be different, because I'll actually have time to, actually look at what I'm voting. And to raise
That's a common problem in our Congress as well. They introduce these massive, stacks of legislation with only a short time to look through them.
And if you're someone like Jim Banks that, you're spending all your time dialing for dollars, you're not going to have time to read anything. And if your staff is really not doing the job they're supposed to be doing, they're not going to look at it. So he's going to vote for this stuff that's stupid that gets through. I'm going to be different on that. I'm in the real world. I'm in the business world. I couldn't, for my family's business, I had to make hard decisions at times, on selling farms or whatever, just to survive economically. In government, it's always kick the can down the road because I don't have to pay for it. We'll make the kids pay for it down the road. The problem is it's gotten so high right now that we're paying for it today through inflation. And we're also, we're paying for it through shrinkflation. You go to the grocery store and, look at what they're doing with cookies. I just noticed this the other day. They've switched the direction of cookies in the wrappers. Mm-hmm. So they have fewer cookies in the packages that you're buying. The price is the same, but you're getting a lot fewer cookies.
Yes. And they also take the container basically, and they space the plastic out to where it creates one less row. Yeah, we're seeing that all over.
Right. No, and fortunately, I'm an honest farmer, so I mean, a dozen eggs is a dozen eggs. If you see only 10 eggs in the egg carton, you're gonna know, oh, what are they up to? But,
Right.
oh, I never got into that. I want to get into that a little bit.
Okay.
Bird flu. It's kind of hitting again, and but back in 2021, when egg prices went high,
Okay.
you know why that was? Bird flu was coming through. And it was
Oh,
coming
yeah.
through.
I remember that.
50 million chickens in the United States got bird flu and had to be killed. My own family, we lost 3 million chickens to bird flu. And so there was just a massive loss of chickens. And so yes, the price went up, but I mean, we were losing our butts on what, the losses. And so that's, and so these career politicians, they like to throw stones at the farmers and say, oh, it's the evil farmers that are raising egg prices. We can't, farmers don't set their price.
Right.
It's purely free market, and we love that. Leave it alone. Let the free market decide it. That's why eggs are still $2 a dozen in the store most of the time, because the free market is working. Leave it alone. That doesn't need government coming in and saying, oh, you need XYZ prices. Let the free market decide that. But back to bird flu, that was entirely preventable. You know why? There's a vaccine against bird flu, but the United States government does not allow chicken farmers to vaccinate our chickens against bird flu, even though bird flu is 100% fatal. And there's a vaccine for it, and we're prevented from using it. And why isn't that?
Yeah.
China. China vaccinates their chickens against bird flu, but says they will not buy eggs from the United States, or not eggs, chicken or other meat from vaccinated chickens, because they want the United States to have the economic turmoil of egg prices going up and down, because bird flu comes in, and they want that turmoil in prices so they can come in and try to buy egg farms or whatever, when the price collapses.
Interesting.
And
I didn't know that.
If we were just allowed to vaccinate, there wouldn't have been the problem, and egg prices wouldn't have went through the roof. But fortunately, egg prices are are back where they need to be.
They're back.
Absolutely. My family, we've been in the egg business for 70 years. You certainly don't get in the egg business to get rich. You're in the egg business because you love doing what you do, just as any other farmer. You love feeding Americans, and it's an honorable profession, and you're doing a great thing. It's so wonderful. Anytime I'm on a farm, I'll pack some eggs in a case, and I always talk to the people. I said, somewhere someone is making a birthday cake for their daughter with one of those eggs. Every egg is a special story, and it's such a wonderful thing to be in that, a part of that. And that's farming, and so I want to get back into this a little bit more. Jim Banks attacked us for this Chicago lawsuit where we got sued for quote unquote price fixing or whatever.
Right.
The companies that did that made us increase the amount of space for our chickens. So we had to go in and take chickens out of the cages.
Right.
To increase the space for each chicken. When you do that, there would be fewer eggs to sell.
Right.
But listen to this. We knew that going into that, but we were told, they told us they would not buy eggs from us if we didn't do that. So what we did, as fast as we possibly could, we added massive new chicken houses to the end of our chicken houses.
Okay.
Chicken farms. And so if you go by our farms up in Northern Indiana, especially, you drive right by, you can't help but see them. There are these really large chicken houses that are added literally to the end of the chicken farms. While we were taking chickens out of the cages in one chicken house, we were building new production at the end. So Rose Acres, we went from 15.4 million chickens before we got into this program that our customers required us to do, to over 21 million chickens today. We increased the number of birds in Indiana and for the nation. And, that's why eggs are inexpensive today, because we did the right thing. We're in this, for, the free market. We're in this because we love the business we're in. We're not, farming is not lucrative. If anyone wants to get rich farming,
it's not the way. Yeah.
It's a lot of work, and it's
my family farms. Yeah.
And if you're a farmer, you're a price taker. You're not a price maker.
No.
So anyhow, these hundreds of billions of dollars of corporation businesses sued us for doing what they made us do. And the Chicago jury said, yes, they were bad. They did what they had to do. So we're appealing that. We believe we will win. One of the things that the Chicago jury said that we shouldn't be doing is selling eggs overseas. And Jim Banks, they're out there saying, oh, this is horrible. Egg farmers shouldn't be selling eggs overseas because that's going to, raise egg prices in Indiana if you sell eggs, somewhere else. Are we going to ban GM and Ford from selling cars overseas? Are we going to ban, farmers from selling corn, wheat, and soybeans overseas?
No.
Jim Banks was opposed to Donald Trump's trade policy. I can see why. He's opposed to, free enterprise system. He's opposed to farmers being able to make a decent living. Farming today is hard.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's very hard. For someone growing grain in Indiana, the cost to produce a bushel of corn is $4.75 today. That's the cost.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, right now, the price that you're getting from, when you sell it is like $4.20 a bushel. You're losing money.
Yeah.
And why is that? It's because government is coming in, especially now, you got Biden and everyone saying, oh, you have to drive electric cars, and, they don't want anyone, using, fossil fuels or ethanol.
Right.
I strongly believe in ethanol. I strongly believe, in drilling as much as we possibly can. I believe in fracking. We have to have a fuel supply for the United States. Electric cars, in theory, maybe they're okay. But I mean, if you're in cold weather and it doesn't charge and you can't go somewhere, you're going to change your mind pretty quick.
And we're seeing that all over now with all the Teslas and other electric vehicles that aren't able to operate because it's too cold.
Right. I believe in let people decide if they want electric cars on their own. Let the free market decide that. That shouldn't be the government saying, oh, you have to drive an electric car.
Right.
If you want an electric car, great. Teslas, they have incredible performances.
Mm-hmm.
And on a hot summer day, they'll go from 0 to 60 in, 4 seconds or whatever. But, let someone on their own decide if they want that car. Don't make, everyone drive electric cars. Because right now, especially if you're a farmer, you have to have, gasoline powered tractor, diesel fuel powered tractors just to farm. You can't go in and plug in for that because the energy required, it's not realistic to, fathom going to electric for that. But, government people, government career politicians that have no idea in the real world, they think that's okay to ban that.
Yeah.
Or to go after cows for farting and stuff like that. It is.
Right. It's
and that's why I think I'm at the right place at the right time. I'm a farmer. I have common sense, I think. I'm running for the U.S. Senate, so maybe but that's why I'm running, because I just think people are so sick to death, the career politicians that don't have any idea what the real world is. It's folks in Indiana, that are, that have, the real world, I always say, is at the checkout stand at Walmart.
Right.
When you're scanning your items there,
Mm-hmm.
you know what everything costs. The real world is not meeting with a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. and having a steak dinner paid for by XYZ lobbyists.
Right.
And that's why, I will be in Seymour. You'll see me at the Walmart or at the LaPorte McDonald's. You're going to see me in the real world. I just don't believe in, being beholden to these lobbyists. And so they're lining up against me hard. They're so lining up against me hard, and I welcome it, because I think in the end it makes me a better candidate, and I think it makes people realize, hey, my gosh, there's someone who's standing up against the establishment and is really meaning it. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. And,
which is huge. That's a huge deal. I mean,
we're so blessed. America, we are still so blessed. The United States is the most wonderful country on earth. There's a reason everyone is trying to come here.
Oh, absolutely.
We are so blessed. We are so blessed. And I want to make sure that future generations have the same blessings we have today. That's why I'm in this.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come onto the show and talk to people directly. I think you got a lot of great things to say, and I hope that people take the time to actually learn more about you and don't listen to the media, and actually take the time to dive in, You've addressed, I mean, really, you've addressed all the so-called slams and issues that they claim, make you
right. And if I'm going to the United States Senate, I owe it to everyone to address any question you give me. I just don't believe in, I'm a fighter. I believe in, in responsibility. I don't believe in, nothing is granted to me. That's one of the things kind of annoys me with Jim Banks. They think this should be just granted to him and make the U.S. Senate a House of Lords where no one has any choice. If Hoosier voters want to vote for him, great. That's their choice. I absolutely 100% respect that. And that's the will of the people, and that's democracy, and that's what I'm fighting for. And I think that's why people should vote for me, for John Rust, the United States Senate, because we are sick of these career politicians. Just sick of them. Sorry.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I have one more really, really important question for you. And that is, well, two. I'm sorry. I got one that I have to get in before because people will be mad at me if I don't. What's your favorite egg preparation?
Oh my gosh. I love deviled eggs, but they're hard to make.
Okay.
But I absolutely love my church organist. Her name's Olga Adi. She makes them for all the events I have or any church socials. And so I'm always eating her deviled eggs. And my sister Karen makes wonderful deviled eggs too. So I'm always eating those. But this morning, what I have 2 to 3 over easy every morning, and I fry them in bacon grease. I fry 2 strips of bacon first, and then I fry the eggs in the bacon grease. And I do that every morning. And I've done
every
that
morning. Wow.
And my cholesterol is perfect. I'm very blessed.
That was the whole big thing. They're finding out now that all of that stuff about, butter and eggs being bad for you was.
If the government tells you something's wrong, it's probably right.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And the second question I have for you is, how can people ask you questions directly? Do you monitor your social media? Is there a team that does that for you?
I do. And just go to rust2024.com and there's a click thing to, sign up for emails or to contact me, and I will answer that myself.
Okay, awesome.
I have no problem giving this out. My office number at my campaign office is 812-497-3441. Call. If no one's there, leave a message. I will get back to you. I absolutely promise. 812-497-3441.
Okay. All right. Phenomenal. Once again, thank you so much for taking the time to come on, and we greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope I can do it again sometime.
Absolutely. All right. That was John Rust, ladies and gentlemen. He is running for United States Senate from the great state of Indiana. He lives in Seymour. He has given you his office number. His social media contact information is scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now. Pretty straightforward guy, man. I mean, he's a farmer. Farmers are very, very straightforward. My cousin's farm in Rolling Prairie, and they don't mince words. They're very straightforward. They will tell you like it is, and that seems to be how he is. I will say this. Look, I don't know Jim Banks personally at all. I've never met him. But I have reached out to him several times. My team has reached out to him several times to have him come onto the show as well. And we haven't heard back from him. I'm hoping that he will, so that we have an opportunity to talk to him. But Mr. Rust was kind enough to take time out of his schedule to come on. And he's been, I mean, as far as I've seen him on several places talking directly to the people. He was on Abdul's show in Indianapolis. He's on a number of places, and he gets out there and he talks to people. So regardless of how you feel about Jim Banks or John Rust, at least take the time to listen to the people's words. And if you can talk directly to Mr. Banks, then do so. Ask the questions that you have. I know that Mr. Rust is taking the time to answer people directly, which it really bodes well for the time that if he's elected as senator that he'll spend, because I'm going to tell you, one of my biggest pet peeves about politicians is when they run for office, they act like they give a damn. And then once they're elected, they disappear. If you don't hear from somebody when they're a candidate, you're damn sure not going to hear from them when they're in office. I mean, that's just how it is. So Make up your own mind. And that, I say that to everybody. I put it out on my social media all the time. Make up your own mind. Do not let newspapers or smear stories or politicians tell you what to think. Think for yourself. Make up your own mind. Do the research. Look into things for yourself and learn for yourself. Just like always, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me tonight. I appreciate the time that you took to watch this program. God bless you. God bless Indiana. And God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Deion's Daily Dose. This has been Deion's Daily Dose, hosted by Deion Bergeron. Executive producers, Sean Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2024. Deion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.